Yeah, so this is a case study for down near Cape Cod in Bourne, and the house was on the market, and the prospective buyer loved the house. It was a great location. It was going to be a nice second home for them as a vacation spot, and they went through the home inspection process, and the home inspector rightfully called out a concern in the foundation walls. And this house had block foundations. So block would be cinder block foundation. So out of the three typical built foundations in New England, we have concrete, stone, and block. So the block foundation is just a standard cinder block. Most times the cinder block foundations aren't filled in. So you have like those empty cells of the cinder blocks that kind of stay open. And in this case, he saw a horizontal crack that went about 20 feet left to right across the foundation wall. Now, a lot of times, people say, it's not that big, it's not that big of an issue. And a lot of times it'll be kind of, 3/4 of the way up the foundation wall that they'll see this. And so he noted it as a concern and to have, a foundation expert, look at it and investigate it. Meanwhile, the buyers decided to do their own research and get really nervous about what this potentially could mean. Because obviously you do a little bit of research online and everything can be worse than what it is depending on your level of expertise with it. So we were able to evaluate this foundation, and what we had found is that there was a horizontal crack in the blocks. Usually what we'll see on these is you'll see either one straight line that goes across, or it might go down one over one, down one over one towards a step crack foundation, or a step crack in the foundation. So because there was a horizontal line, we wanted to do some measurements on this to see how far this wall was pushed in. And in this case, it was only pushed in about a 1/2 inch. So obviously that's a concern, but in the grand scheme of things, it's less of a concern than if it were more towards like 2.5, 3 inches or more. So what causes this issue? Well, a lot of times, because of a block foundation, if you think about cinder blocks, they're just stacked on top of each other and stagger jointed and mortared together. And because a lot of residential construction doesn't have concrete in the middle of them, they can be subject to kind of being pushed inward by soil pressures, freezing and thawing cycles, excessive water on the other side. And one thing that's often overlooked is landscaping. Whether you have large trees or shrubbery nearby, that root ball can actually push on that foundation and cause it to buckle inward. And once a block foundation gets pushed in, you lose that horizontal stability of the wall. And if you lose the horizontal stability of the wall, then the whole house can sag on that side and in some cases collapse. So because that's a big concern of a homeowner and of a prospective buyer, they wanted to know what was the case here. Where was this in the grand scheme of things? Is the house collapsing tomorrow before they sign the purchase and sale, or is it nothing to worry about? In this case, it was enough of a blow to be concerned, but nothing that couldn't be solved. If it was more than 2 inches and it was a lot larger gaps in the mortar joints, that's when you start to look at major structural reconstruction. Either taking out the blocks and rebuilding that wall, which can be very expensive and labor intensive, to putting buttresses or I-beams or tiebacks on the wall. So we don't generally get into that level of foundation repair. Generally, that's a much bigger project. And there are very few homes that really require that. And that would be something that would actually be physically installed either on one side of the wall to stabilize it, or to tie it back into the soil, or potentially, like I said, rebuild the entire wall. Because this was a minor bow inward, we were concerned about the structural stability, but not necessarily that it was going to just collapse in tomorrow. So what we were able to do is we were able to measure out everything and perform some engineering calculations to understand how much resisted strength is needed on this wall. And what we'll do is we'll install structural carbon fiber. And structural carbon fiber is a strip that's about 12 inches wide that'll go from the top of the foundation down to the floor. And they're installed anywhere from 3 to 5 feet across the foundation that is bowing inward. And what that's doing, that's like bolting on a 1/2 inch thick steel plate to the foundation wall. And what that will do is that'll keep the pressure of the soil, the root ball, whatever might be pushing that foundation inward from pushing in anymore. So you still have the stability from the house being pushing down on top, but now you have the stability of the wall not buckling in anymore. And these are be able to stabilize that foundation for a relatively small fraction of the price of rebuilding that portion of the foundation. So we're able to kind of ease the mind of the buyers that, it is a concern. It's something that should be addressed, but it's not something that is a major structural deficiency, ready to collapse the house tomorrow. But it's something that should be addressed sooner than later, because over the winter cycles and rain cycles, it will get worse with time. But in this case, this structural carbon fiber is able to basically save that wall, save that foundation, and people can move in and not have to worry about it for years to come.